In a world where justice often seems elusive, and we must ask ourselves who gets left behind. Today we are discussing an issue that's often ignored, the violence faced by minority women in South Asia. This is not just another webinar, it is call to action for all women out there. Hello and welcome. I'm Heman Das, Senior Research Associate at South Asia Research Institute for Minorities. SARIM is a dedicated organization that is working for minority communities in South Asia. I'm so glad that you have joined us for this important discussion. Invisible victims shedding light on the plight of violence against minority women. Today, we will be unpacking how gender, religion, and ethnicity and social justice interact to create layers of oppression for minority women in South Asia. But before we begin, let's start with some numbers because, as they say, they tell a story that cannot be ignored. When we talk about the Pakistan, over 1,000 minority girls belonging to Christian and Hindu community are abducted, forcefully converted, and married off every year. This is according to the movement for solidarity peace. These girls are under 18, robbed of their childhood and rights. When we look at the India, Dalit women face the highest level of sexual violence. According to the National Crime Reports Bureau reports that at least 10 Dalit women are raped, with 47% rise of the crimes against Dalit women between 2015 and 2022. When we look at the Bangladesh, the story is not that different. The Bangladesh Dalit Excluded Rights Movement found that 65% of Dalit women face sexual harassment, but most incidents go unreported due to the fear of retaliation and systematic barrier. When we talk about another country of the South Asia, Nepal, according to the Feminist Dalit organization, around 21% of Dalit women report, experience sexual violence, with even fewer cases making it to the courts due to lack of legal support and stigma. You might know this. These are not just statistics; they are the real stories of pain, injustice, and resilience of these women. And today we are here to shed light on these stories. I'm thrilled to introduce our incredible panelists. These are the women who have dedicated their lives to advocacy, justice, and change. Let's dive right in and hear from them. So, our first speaker is Rita Manchanda, a feminist scholar and human rights advocate. Ms. Rita, your research has been groundbreaking in understanding the systematic roots of violence. I would like to know, how do you see the state or non-state actors contributing or mitigating the violence against minority women? And what type of policy reforms would you like to prioritize? Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Firstly, I'm delighted to be part of a process that is South Asian. I am quite committed to being a South Asian, thinking the South Asian way, and developing frameworks and conceptual and policy frameworks, which are South Asian. But first and foremost, I would also like to emphasize that I'm going to focus on minorities. What do I mean by minorities? Minority is a fluid identity. It can have multiple markers: religion, language, region, or ethnicity. But today, however, in fact, what is common is the situation or status of non-dominance, as well as powerlessness or marginalization. I'm going to focus not, in fact, on the Dalits, because as indicated by Heman himself, the Dalits are not invisible, but I'm going to focus on communities that are actually invisible in terms of statistics. And I think by now we've all learned, if you can't measure, then you can't develop good policy. And so I'm going to focus on ethno-religious minorities. If you look at the National Crimes Research Bureau documentation, which has already been referred to in the context of the Dalits or Dalit women, it has no categorization of violations or crimes against women, of Muslim women, of Christian women, in fact, or of ethnic women. So that really, it's these invisible spaces that I would like to actually visit right now. So I'm going to focus, as I said, on ethno-religious minorities. I'm going to do, because I have very little time, I'm going to do some categorization. First, let's look at the issue of physical violence. And this is, and I think I would try and direct your attention to conflict affected violence. This includes communal violence, it includes riots, it includes, in fact, armed conflict situations as well. And here you find whether it's the partition, whether it is Gujarat, whether it is Orissa Kandamal, or whether it is Muzaffarnagar, UP. The bodies of women, and there is enough literature on this, some of which I have contributed to, and many people all across South Asia have written on this, which is about women's bodies become the battleground. Now, one is, of course, to humiliate the men who are supposed to be the protectors, but it's also particularly in identity-based conflicts. The body of the woman, destruction of the body of the woman is in fact a way of destroying the community. It's destroying the cultural and reproductive capacity of the community. So we know this particularly from the partition period. We know this from Gujarat. And here, speaking of Gujarat, August 2022, not so long ago, 15th August, on our Independence Day, the Bilkis Banu case, which is one of the very, very few cases that actually went to the court and got justice. This woman, she was 14 members of her family were killed, including her 3-year-old daughter, and she herself was pregnant. She was gang raped. Her head was smashed against a rock, and she was then flung aside into the bushes. She survived. She survived and fought a case which is in fact a landmark case and it couldn't be fought in the courts of Gujarat, it had to be fought in Maharashtra. The accused were convicted, they were given life imprisonment. Yet on August 2022, a day when we were celebrating Nari Shakti, that is women's power, the convicted were released. They were given, they're not entitled to remission at all, but they were given remission of sentences. They were given bail and they walked free. Not only did they walk free, they were garlanded and felicitated. She appealed this and the courts upheld her appeal and the men were sent back. But this is the kind of impunity, the kind of vulnerability. Can you imagine this woman who single-handedly fought this case, one of the very few cases involving sexualized violence, and what happens to her? These men are released and she feels extremely vulnerable, threatened. Fortunately, the courts, as I said, upheld her appeal. Then we have, as I said, there are many cases like this. It doesn't only involve Muslim women. Orissa involved Christian women and Christian nuns who were also sexually violated, killed, and their houses were burnt, their properties. And of course, the men and children were also, attacked in the violence. But here I want to shift from religious minorities to the category of ethno-religious minorities. These happen to be in Manipur. Some of you may have read about Manipur. It's been in the news. This is one of our northeast states. It's a troubled state. It has been involved in secessionist conflicts. It is a state that feels alienated because it is seen as a frontier state. It has a different historical trajectory from the independence movement and so forth. But this was in an inter-ethnic quarrel, meaning you had this, Manipur is a multi-ethnic state, and the Kukis, the Zo Kukis, they border Myanmar, Chin state. These are, there was a conflict between the two. I don't have time to go into why. For 18 months, Manipur has been burning, dereliction of absolutely of duty of all the authority figures. As I said, I'm not going to go into why. What I would like to is the targeted violence against women. In fact, when it started in May, it hit the headlines because 2 women, and this is between the Meiteis, and the Meiteis live in the valley. They are the dominant community, but they, of course, are a minority within the larger landscape of India or demographic space of India. And they are Hindu. The majority is a Hindu. The Kuki-Zo community, Kuki-Zo Mar community are Christians. So, which is why I said ethno-religious. And here, once again, you had attacks, brutal, sexualized attacks against the women who were killed. Most recently, a Meitei woman was killed. Six of her, she was abducted. She was, and this was very close to a paramilitary camp. Yet they were not able to save her. She was abducted along with her two other daughters and her two and three children. All six of them were butchered, and their bodies were floating in the river. But this was a retaliatory attack against an earlier killing that happened just 4 days before of a Mar woman belonging to the Kuki group. And she too, she was a teacher. She was 31 years old. She was attacked, and because her leg was hurt, she couldn't run. She couldn't run along with her husband and children. They managed to escape. She got trapped. When her body was found, she was burnt to death. When her body was found, they found that her body had been badly mutilated. Her arm was severed and whatever. Earlier, there had been this video of two women who had been and these two women were Kukizo women who were stripped, videographed it, and that video went viral. And one of them was gang raped. Or raped. I don't remember if she was gang raped. So this is the kind of violence that of course, men are killed too, but it's this targeted violence against the women. And this has been going on. Why there is impunity, why there is indifference, that's a political question which I have no time to deal with right now. I want to just shift away from physical violence to socio-cultural violence. And we have something called love jihad, which is part of we have religious freedom laws, which are actually anti-conversion laws. And there is this, it's meant to actually stop or prevent or make very difficult interfaith marriages. That is, it's called love jihad because Muslim men marrying Hindu women and converting them and making them, and therefore also destabilizing the demographic balance. We have something like 14 to 15% Muslim population in India. There are all, then we have this whole hijab controversy. Again, in 2022, in the state of Karnataka, you had suddenly this private school said no, they banned hijabs. And the issue snowballed into a major confrontation. And eventually the state government upheld the ban. The courts upheld the ban. So, but the end result was, because there was violence, the end result was the women, the hijab wearing women who for various reasons did not want to give up wearing hijab and also feared attacks, were withdrawn from school. And there is a report by an organization called PUCL, which reported that 1,000 students dropped out of school. Now, this is a report that was done early on. We really don't know what the implications of this hijab ban has been over a longer period. There is also, and one has to recognize this, in an atmosphere where you have rampant hate speech, and the uncertainty, vulnerability, and targeting of Muslims has made it very, very difficult. Fear and vulnerability has, in fact, pushed back particularly women from engaging in public space, even in terms of school going. So you have the phenomena of early marriage and so forth. Then I would also like to turn attention to health violence. Here, because of this demographic threat, Muslim women, your baby producing machines and so forth, you find they're reluctant to go to the public health clinics. They're reluctant to go to the government hospitals because they say we are treated so badly. They abuse us. They humiliate us when we come, particularly if it involves anything to do with reproductive health or maternity issues and so forth. So then, of course, there is also what I would call economic violence, because, there's very little segregated statistics on the basis of religion. However, a recent report has come out, the India Gender Report. It does have a chapter on the social dimension of India's falling female labor force participation. I'm not going into why we've had these alarming situation of labor force participation of women falling at a time of high growth rate, at a time of expansion in terms of access to education. And you find here particularly religious and caste groups are really at the are suffering much more in this decline in terms of female labor force participation, and or getting either in terms of entry into the both casual as well as regular labor market, as well as being crowded or being confined to lower end jobs. I'm now, you asked me in terms of policy. I think one, because, as I said, there is an invisibilization, there's a lack of data. It's extremely important, and also it's very reassuring that we have had some amazing struggles in which women's collectives have formed, have come together, have come forward. And this is the Citizens Amendment Act, which was seen as legally discriminating against Muslims. You had these collectives of women, particularly in Shaheen Bagh, develop their own strategy of protest, a protest that actually made the government sit up, take notice, and eventually also squash. But through it, or as whether it's an offshoot, or whether there are other organizations like Beba Collective, which is an amazing, I mean, they've done this a very fine study on the mental health of Muslim women. Now, because there is, as I said, so little segregated data, some of these reports are really gold. And I think because there is skepticism about mainstream women's groups taking on women's issues, there is this whole controversy of a uniform civil code. So I think one of the most positive aspects has been on the issue of the emergence of women's collectives and the kind of amazing work that they're doing. I'll stop here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Rita, for your invaluable insights and for highlighting some critical cases like Ms. Manu. Which really underscores the systematic challenges that exist in India. And I also deeply appreciate how your analysis translates a singular focus on Dalit women, shedding light on a broader systematic violence rooted in ethno-religious dynamic, such as those witnessed in the recent Manipur conflict. Honestly, your emphasis on the both state and non-state actors' roles and the need for holistic policy reforms is truly highlighting. Talking about the Manipur specifically, we can schedule an exclusive podcast dedicated to exploring this multifaceted dimensions of this issue. Once again, thank you very much for broadening the scope of this critical conversation, inspiring continued dialogue. Moving to our next speaker, Ishrath Nisar, a journalist, lecturer, and a faculty member at Baduku Center for Livelihoods Learning in India. Ishrath, you have been reporting on violence against minority women, if we talk about the broader aspect, all marginalized women for years. Would you like to talk about how caste, religion, and socio-economical status amplify the violence faced by women, particularly in India? Any states you want to mention? And what kind of role do you see media play in addressing these issues? Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you for inviting me for this very essential conversations. And I would like to thank Rita ji for elaborately putting the context in place, wherein she has talked about, or she has covered almost all the aspects of the entire process. Journalism per se is like, as you know, like right now I am not in journalism. Like way back I was a journalist, but right now I'm doing translations and all these other works of journalism. But keeping the right now the situation in India, all the media is, I would like to mention that they're sold out, and they're all like so biased media, and it's all like Godi media, which is doing all the work which is being expected by the people too. I would not like to mention that you might be knowing like, who is behind all these things and what they want and what has been happening. And most of the time, the anchors will be sitting and talking about the language which is, I would like to mention it as, it's not a people's language. It's the it's the corporate language. It is the government language. It is the people. It is no more a people's language. And all the important aspects will be like, it is no more given the importance, and it is not being highlighted. The people movements were totally like sabotaged, and no coverage you can see in the media. And for me, like I was asking Kurkoji, what should I speak? So he said it's a broader this thing. So most of my discussion was around like what Rita ji was talking on those lines. I had been prepared myself, but still considering moving ahead from there, it is like when we come to the cultural context, and it is also is like patriarchal structures and all the and the intersectionalities, which has been burdening the women doubly. These I mean, the patriarchal structures, minority women often feel within patriarchal community norms that limit their autonomy. We are while also being subjected to external societal discrimination. For example, if you take personal law, in Muslim personal law, it sometimes highlight patriarchal norms, overshading systemic issues faced by these women. And when we come to intersectionality of identities, minority women carry the dual burden of representing their cultural identity and navigated social oppression. They often become symbols in political or communal conflicts, making them vulnerable and targeted to violence. Example, women targeted during communal rights are in social media, hate campaigns, apps like Sully Deals, Bully Boys, and all these things where the women are active and they are protesting. So they will be like targeted in the social media and the hate speech, so that they should not talk about all these things. And like when it comes to like forms of violence, like already Rita ji has mentioned, but also is like there are domestic and sexual violence, and statistics say that 33% of women in India experience domestic violence. Dalit and tribal women report higher rates due to caste and poverty intersections. According to NCRB 2021, over 31,000 rape cases reported annually, with minority women particularly vulnerable. And like caste-based atrocities is like Hathras. If you could remember, 2022, a Dalit woman was brutally gang raped and denied even the dignity even in her death. Adivasi women face sexual violence during forced displacements or conflicts over land. And now she has also talked about Manipur violence, and which is still ongoing, and every day it's day to day we are getting to know a lot of things about that. And also is like when it comes to religious and ethnic violence, communal rights, women from minority communities bear the brunt of sexual violence, systemic neglect, and delays in justice worsen their plight. And honor killings and trafficking, minority women targeted for marrying outside caste and religions, vulnerable and trafficking due to economic instability and lack of legal safeguards. And like if you look at the causes of violence, it's also like it's intersectional marginalizations, gender, caste, and religion, and whatever the policies and these things will like these people will form, the governments will form, are like they are not even recognizing the intersectionalities. Like women from marginalized communities such as Dalits and Muslims face discrimination on multiple fronts, gender, caste, and religion, creating a unique vulnerability to violence. And socioeconomic exclusion, poverty, and lack of access to education or employment exacerbates in the dependency of minority women, limiting their ability to resist or escape violence. And systemic discriminations also is there, like caste-based hierarchy. Dalit women positioned at the lowest rung of the caste system face caste-based violence to reinforce hierarchical power structures. Perpetrators often go unpunished due to biases in law enforcement and the judiciary. Religious prejudice, growing Islamophobia, and anti-Christian sentiments, which has already given the examples of, contribute to targeted violence against Muslim and Christian women, including during communal riots. Communal and ethnic polarizations, often like communal politics, often driven by majoritarian narratives, fosters an environment where minority women become targets of violence to intimidate or humiliate their communities. Their bodies are considered as war zones. Ethnic conflicts, ongoing ethnic tensions such as those in Manipur result in violence where women are deliberately targeted as symbols of their community's honor. So like when we are talking about patriarchal norms and honor-based violence, control over female sexuality, women, especially in minority communities, are seen as bearers and bearers of culture and religious honor. Intercaste or interreligious relationships often broken, honor killing, or mob violence. And the Khap Panchayats play a major role in all these things. Forced conformity, policies like the hijab ban and accusations of forced religious conversations are used to undermine minority women's autonomy. And during this hijab ban, almost like 800 girls they have to be out of the education, which is like per se, like Muslim women coming out and getting education itself is becoming so difficult. The women are like, they were trying to get out and get education, but these kind of things once again bind them back to the four walls. Bias in law enforcement, casteist and communal biases within law enforcement hinder timely investigation and prosecution of perpetrators, as seen in many cases of sexual violence against Dalit women. And media and online hate is like, again, I have already talked about, like casteist, cyber violence. Muslim women are frequent targets of online abuse, with platforms being used to propagate hate speech and degrade their dignity, like already I have mentioned. And it is normalized misogyny and Islamophobia. Campaigns like Sully Deals and Bully Voice reflect the growing intersection of sexism and communal hatred in online spaces. And political and institutional failures, like polarizing policies, law like the Citizenship Amendment Act and National Register of Citizens, have disproportionately affected Muslim women, leading to fear, insecurity, and statelessness. And lack of representation, I would say minority women, forget about minority women, minority men are also underrepresented in the parliament's political decision making. So this reduces the women not there in this women not representing the in the politics, reducing their ability to advocate for systemic change. And like some striking facts about against minority women in India is like disproportionate vulnerability. Minority women, especially Muslims and Dalits, face violence that intersect caste, religion, and gender. Dalit women are 33% more likely to face sexual violence than women from other castes. Muslim women are targeted during communal riots, as seen in the Gujarat riots and 2020 Delhi riots, where rape was used as a weapon of communal hatred. Increasing hate crimes. Reports indicate rise in targeted violence against women from minority communities, often fueled by hate speech and majoritarian narratives. And now the new thing which has been started is also is like Waqf land, the Waqf land issue, which has been taken in India. And this is again, it's going to affect the women in turn. Impact of state policies like the Karnataka hijab ban, which Rita ji has already mentioned, which has been pushed back the girls who are trying to get educated and do some of these things. I would like to conclude by this remark of like Dr. Kimberly Greenshaw, a leading scholar and activist, who coined the term intersectionality. When we liberate the most marginalized, we create a society where everyone can thrive. She emphasizes that addressing the struggles of the most marginalized individuals benefits society as a whole. And I think we need to, and as Rita ji has already mentioned, like there are a lot of civil society organizations who are working towards this, but again and again, new challenges are thrown towards them. Thank you so much.
I think that's a powerful message and powerful ending by you. Thank you very much, Ms. Ishrath, for your thought-provoking insights. I mean, your discussion on the biasness in media coverage is both bold and necessary. I mean, it is a conversation that not many journalists are willing to have. I particularly appreciate how you highlighted the dual identity of minority women, where caste and religion intersect to compound their vulnerabilities, as well as the growing prevalence of hate speech that perpetuates the cycle of this violence. I mean, media should play more responsible and proactive role in addressing these issues, which is critical reminder to the powerful responsibility of the journalism. Once again, thank you for shedding the light on these vital aspects. Moving ahead, unfortunately, our next speaker, she's basically from Nepal, currently living in Australia. Sumitra Magrati could not join us due to some personal commitment, but we do have a message here. So let me just give a brief about herself. Sumitra Magrati is a social mobilizer and USA Youth Council member from Nepal. Sumitra in Nepal belongs to a Dalit minority community and face unique challenges. In this video, she shares some of her violence she has faced or this kind of discrimination she has been part of.
Namaste everyone, my name is Sumitra Magrati from Nepal. Currently I'm residing in Australia for my higher education. First of all, I would like to extend my thanks to Purkhaji for inviting me in this important webinar. I regret not being able to join you live for this impactful webinar, but I'm grateful for the opportunity to share my insights through this recording. And also, I extend my gratitude to everyone here who is committed to addressing the pressing issue of violence against minority women in South Asia. So, having worked extensively with marginalized communities in Nepal, I have witnessed the profound struggles minority women face, discrimination rooted in the gender, ethnicity, religion, and socioeconomic status. This intersectionality compounds their vulnerability, subjecting them to systematic violence, forced displacement, and social exclusion. For instance, in Nepal, Dalit women often endure disproportionate levels of violence and discrimination. Across South Asia, societal norms and inadequate legal protections further perpetuate these injustices. Yet, despite their challenges, these women are also agents of change. Grassroots initiatives such as community-led advocacy and women's collectives have proven powerful in amplifying their voices and fostering empowerment. And the main thing is we need to call for action. Our collective responsibility lies in advocating for legal reforms, culturally sensitive solutions, and platforms that amplify their voices globally. Empowerment must be systematic, ensuring that minority women not only survive but thrive. In a nutshell, together we must dismantle the structures enabling this violence and work towards a just society. Let today's dialogue inspire meaningful action for a future where every woman's voice is heard and valued. Thank you. Thank you so much.
With that message, I would like to say that Sumitra emphasized on minority women should not survive but thrive. So moving ahead, I would like to invite our last speaker, which is Mousmi Ray. She's from Bangladesh and she is a passionate Dalit activist and a program officer at Nagorik Uddyog, where she focuses on empowering women and girls through impactful initiative. She holds a BSS and MSS in public administration from Rajshahi University, bringing a strong academic foundation to her advocacy work. With a deep commitment to the social justice, Mousmi is dedicated to creating a meaningful change in the lives of Dalit communities, particularly women, Dalit women, Dalit women and Hindu women in Bangladesh. Over to you, Mousmi.
Thank you. This is Mousmi Ray from Bangladesh. I'm from a minority community, and I'm little bit illness.
No worries.
And I'm working in Nagorik as a program officer and works with the empowering girls and women, basically Dalit community, and here the invisible, the main subject that's invisible victims, shedding light on the plight of violence against minority women, Bangladesh perspectives. In Bangladesh, violence against women is a pervasive issue, but the experience of women from religious and ethnic minorities often go unnoticed. While gender-based violence is widespread across the country, minority women face unique forms of oppression that intersect with this gender, religion, ethnicity, and social status. These women often endure multiple layers of discrimination and violence, yet their stories remain largely invisible within the broader human rights discourse. In Bangladesh, 91% Muslim and only 9% are minorities, where are Hindus, Buddha, Christians are available there. And among them, Dalits is in Bangladesh are subjected to discrimination based on decent work decent work. Basically, they are oppressed by untouchability. Here, the untouchability is the more a common issue to them. And there are about 60 lakhs Dalits face discrimination in Bangladesh due to prevalence of patriarchal norms and values. Dalit women and girls experience more discrimination in comparison to their male counterpart. Dalit women facing several types of discriminatory practices and violence in their community. They face triple marginality. First being a Dalit, second being economically less fortunate, and third being a woman. And belonging to both a larger patriarchal society and a low-caste marginalized community, this brutal manifests itself in the form of verbal abuse directed towards Dalit women, frequently followed by physical assault. Dalit girls feel insecure at public places. Teasing, bullying, and sexual harassment by mainstreaming young boys is not very uncommon among the Dalit girls and women when they go to the public places such as marketplaces, schools, cinema halls, parks, etc. Dalit girls' educational ambitions are hampered by their community's immense poverty, which is exacerbated by issues such as lack of educational awareness and early marriage. Parents arrange wedding for their under 18 daughters for a variety of reasons. Dalit women succeed to shield herself from harassment outside. She is powerless to protect herself within the confines of her own home. Women believe they have no rights to challenge their husbands, especially when their faith prohibits it. And if by any chance they raise their voice, they will be tormented emotionally and physically. In a large number of causes, these women are subjected to domestic violence by their in-laws for reasons such as being dowries, not caring male children, not adequately caring of their husbands, relatives. Married Dalit women are often yelled and beaten by their husband when husbands are drunk and run out of money. Dalit women frequently confront substantial constraints when attempting to exercise their freedom of choice and self-expression in household decision-making process, as meaning that the mobility and public functions of Dalit women are being determined by male family members and faction customs. Dalit citizens, especially women, have extremely few choices for earning a living for years. Sweeping, cleaning has been the primary source of revenue for Dalit women. Furthermore, they encounter significant obstacles in assessing property and income. These challenges are discriminatory societal norms and practices deeply rooted in the both gender and caste system. And the communities in unsanitary conditions expose them to health hazards and infections. And the drastic conditions and health risks encountered by Dalit women and children include the lack of clean water, lack of sanitation, and other drainage system. Dalit women, the scarcity of hygiene products also, insufficient knowledge of appropriate hygiene practices, the inadequacy of solid waste disposal management, and unhygienic living conditions. You can see one or two family they have members 8 to 10 and they live in a on room in that is so little hut that we had. So there is many problem to live there, and there is a notable lack of sexual rights, SRSR knowledge, and awareness of family planning services. Dalit colony is usually found often birthplaces, which hampered privacy and hygiene for Dalit girls and women. Dalit women's political power within clan or caste, particularly the panchayat. Here there is a panchayat system. The panchayat system structure has been so low that they are prohibited from participating in any judicial process. As now, one or two member is added there, but this is so called. Dalit women are not supposed to participate in the panchayat. Dalit women are denied political representation and are subjected to systematic hardship, isolation, and mistreatment. And according to us, that means Nagorik research. However, it would be incorrect to assume that Dalit women are uninterested in politics or participating in political activities, because there is low education rate, and when we go to collect fifth class girls, there is no fifth class girls. So I think there no education. No educated girl or low education scale. That's why there is they are not empowered. They are not empowered economically or others. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mousmi, for highlighting the key issues like sexual violence, work and descent problem in Bangladesh that particularly women face. You're focused on the challenges faced by the little marginalized communities in Bangladesh, particularly in terms of labor and social justice, which is very crucial. By highlighting these concerns or issues, you are helping to amplify the voices of those who are often overlooked in the broader conversations. Once again, thank you for your continued advocacy and for bringing the attention to these pressing issues. As we wrap up our conversation, I am fascinated by the resilience and courage of minority women across South Asia. Of course, by the panelist, women panelist, strong enough. Bringing the women from India to Nepal, Bangladesh to Pakistan. These women are fighting battles. They have seen the most women fight the battle, and one cannot imagine. They are doing it with an incredible strength. To everyone listening, this is not just their fight, it is all of ours. Let's amplify their voices and advocate for the change and hold systems accountable. My heartfelt thank you to our panelists, Ms. Ishrath, Ms. Mousmi, Ms. Sumitra, Ms. Rita, for the wisdom and the dedication to the work they are doing in their prospective fields. And thank you once again for being here with me. And let's carry the message of this conversation forward and continue working for more just and equitable society where women are more respected in every part of the world. Until next time, stay safe, stay informed. Thank you once again for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Heman.